Welcome to Sound and Fury. I'm Eric Wilfred Watson, and I have a lighter colored hat than you.
Take that ridiculous thing off.
And I'm Hugh Frank, and I think that you should never have more than one pan-galactic gargle blaster unless you are a 40-ton mega elephant with bronchial pneumonia.
Today we're going to continue our discussion of DC fan watching Marvel movies.
Yes.
A whole load of Marvel movies.
Yes.
In part 5 of this series, we're going to talk about Captain America, the First Avenger.
America.
Captain America.
Yes.
So, observations as I watched Captain America. Now, I think Captain America is when it finally clicked in my head that, oh, this is a cinematic universe that's connected to Thor and Iron Man. And all that
it's
stuff.
an MCU, LOL.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love skinny Steve Rogers with the garbage can shield.
Yes.
One of the funniest parts in the entire MCU.
Yeah.
It's just, after, I haven't watched this movie in a while. I have seen this one more than once. Unlike the other Marvel movies that I only saw in the theater, this one I've watched a couple times. But I haven't seen this in a while, and it's just funny to me seeing the CGI skinny Steve. It looks, I don't know if it's convincing or not, because I know it's CGI, but it just, that's so weird looking.
I didn't really know, when the first time I saw it, I didn't know what was going to happen. And the CGI was lost on me. I didn't realize that it was a different, I didn't know what was going on. So, anyway, yeah, so it totally fooled me. Yeah.
There is somewhat of a steampunk, retro-futuristic feel to it in some aspects because of the
Nazi submarine, the Hydra submarine.
The futuristic technology in a 1940s setting, trying to make it look like it could have been built in the 40s, but it obviously couldn't have been.
Yeah.
Tony Stark's flying car, like the monorail at the Stark
works.
Expo.
Yeah.
The gigantic tanks that were bigger than any tank that actually existed in World War II. The gigantic
They call
airplane.
them tanks a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, the giant flying wing plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and like even the car that they drove up, it just I don't know if that's an actual model of vehicle from the 40s. I didn't think so, but it pulls me out of it a little bit until I remember this isn't really supposed to be our universe. So just roll with it.
Yeah. It did match the way. So in the back in that day, you couldn't necessarily build. Engines were only just so powerful. So the way to have more power was to add more engines. So the way that bomber had, what did it have? Like 12 freaking engines on it, right? And then like even the car, that was probably like a 16-cylinder. It had like a mile of hood. Because if you wanted to make a fast car, you couldn't necessarily make a more efficient engine because
Had to make more engine.
just had to make more engine, yeah. And that's how so it kind of made sense with the way things actually were back then. That's why our big bombers had more and more engines on them.
More engines equals good, America. Tommy Lee Jones is fantastic.
Always.
We are going to win this war because we have the best men.
He's never been bad in anything he's ever been in. He's at least good in everything. Even if the movie... What's a bad Tommy Lee Jones movie?
Well, Two-Face in whichever Batman movie that was. Sorry, but Tommy Lee just did not pick it up. It did not... I mean, the movie sucked also, but he was just over the top. Maybe he was directed to be over the top, but...
Blind, stupid, simple, doodah, clueless. The Wrath of Toss.
That was the one bad role that Tommy Lee Jones just... That was just not... He shouldn't have...
You're hurting my little DC heart here because you're just pulling out the worst aspects of DC and throwing them right in my face. But yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face was not good, but I remember being exceptionally disappointed in it too when I was a kid because I was really getting into the Batman comics, and Two-Face was like the first villain that I found in the comics that wasn't on the TV show.
Yeah.
And I like, ooh, they're going to make a movie version of him and Tommy Lee Jones. And I watched the movie even as however young I was then, being disappointed by that. But let's talk about Marvel instead of the worst thing that ever happened to DC.
Well, let's not for just a moment, though, because what it really should have been was Lando Calrissian.
True, because
he was Harvey Dent in the first Batman.
Yes, that is absolutely true, and that would have been fantastic to see that come to fruition, but
it would have
didn't.
been great.
Joel Schumacher can
suck it. Suck it, Joel Schumacher.
Boo to you, Mr. Ruined Batman.
Yeah.
Temporarily. There is a sequence in this movie where they show Captain America comic book.
Yeah.
And the cover is almost exactly the same as the real Captain America comic book, with the iconic Captain America punching Hitler in the face.
Yes.
I thought it was brilliant to put that in the movie. It's not a fourth wall break exactly, kind of a wink to the audience.
Right.
But I thought it was neat that they did that, and I wholeheartedly approve.
Yeah. And it shows that the first superhero really was that. He was, it wasn't a god from space. It wasn't a rich man in an iron suit. It was it was the 40s. Back then it was the patriotic American superhero. So and what did he do? He sold war bonds.
Sell a few bonds, bonds buy bullets, bullets kill Nazis. Bing, bang, boom. You're an American hero.
There's a portion of this movie that reminded me of Star Trek.
Of course it did.
Because in Star Trek, they also had skull-faced alien Nazis on a couple different occasions.
Of course they did.
In Star Trek Voyager, aliens posed as Nazis on the holodeck so they could kill the Voyager crew over and over again because they were hunters and realized they had the ability to do that. So they had their Nazi uniforms on their alien faces. And in Star Trek Enterprise, which is the Scott Bakula show, there is a sequence, there's a two-part episode where space alien Nazis with glowing red eyes alter history, and they actually have like space lasers that the Nazis made, very much like the space lasers that the Nazis had in Captain America. And
a lot of Nazi space lasers.
Yeah, Star Trek has Nazi space lasers.
Alrighty then. Should we move along?
No.
Get on with it.
Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek Nazi space lasers. Got it. Cliff notes.
Why didn't all of the militaries and all of the worlds use space lasers from World War II moving forward, if they had the technology then?
Because they lost the Tesseract. That was the source of all that power.
I like that Red Skull had a space laser Luger.
Of course he did.
I want a space laser Luger.
Yes, a space Luger. A Sluger, so to speak.
But
actually, a Sluger sounds like that thing you wake up with in the morning and you got a...
But didn't they just like use the technology? Do they have to have the actual glowing MacGuffin cube for their laser guns to work separately?
Yes. They charged them up.
They didn't really explain that.
Yeah, they kind of showed it. It's a visual. You have to go back to the visual.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, probably because they didn't have the prop in it. That's probably why you didn't understand what was going on. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't have the prop, you don't know.
In here.
Sorry.
Part of this movie reminded me of Star Wars.
Wow.
Captain America is chasing his the motorcycle chase through the woods reminded me of the speeder chase in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Very briefly, but very similar. Motorcycles through the woods.
Makes sense.
There's a Wilhelm scream.
Of course.
I like Wilhelm screams.
Yes, there should be in every movie.
Even if nobody gets hurt, just
that's what the heck of it.
Let's see what else I got in my notes here. Another sequence of this movie reminded me of Kung Fury.
Well, that's good. Kung Fury is the best movie ever.
In Kung Fury, there's a really extended sequence where he's fighting his way through Nazis.
It looks like a video game, kind of.
There's this brief sequence where Captain America's fighting his way through Nazis running toward the airplane, and just he's ridiculously smashing the Nazis. It made me think of Kung Fury. Why did the Tesseract melt or disappear or beam up Red Skull Man when he touched it, when it didn't really do that before? Why did the Tesseract just get rid of him for some reason?
That is a good question.
Did I stump the Marvel Man?
Well, it's not explained, so it's not something that. I mean, I could venture a fanboy explanation, which is to say that. So the Infinity Stones have a little bit of a conscience to them, and you know the Soul Stone maybe needed a guardian or a he didn't refer to himself as a guardian, a custodian or whatever. So the Soul Stone talked to the Tesseract and said, "Hey, yo, I need somebody here," and beamed him up.
Okay.
So,
it is tying into later Marvel movies where, you know, Steve Rogers goes back through time to be with.
Yes.
To be with Carter.
Yes.
Which did not in any way violate the TVA rules.
Nope, apparently not.
Because that was supposed to happen.
Yeah, apparently.
But watching this movie again, they didn't really have much of a romance for him to go back to, other than the missed date. Because when they last saw each other, she was pissed at him for kissing a blonde chick, and he was jealous of Howard Stark. And then that's the last time they saw each other. They did have their, like, don't die on the plane, I'll go on a date with you after all. But when he...
Yeah.
It wasn't really like they were a couple. Like, they kind of made it seem in later movies.
Yeah.
But I guess it was innocent Steve Rogers' first crush.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you think of it in the pure romance, like their souls made that connection or whatever, and you know, so there's like that one person that you know you're meant to be with, and they just didn't have time to actually be together, but they were that one to each other.
They were meant to be.
They were meant to be. Yeah.
I liked when they referred to the gods, and it's Norse mythology, which apparently isn't actually mythology, it's history.
Right. Apparently so.
But it connects to Thor a lot more than I remember, and I thought that was neato.
Yep.
The Tesseract was the jewel of Odin's treasure room.
The Tesseract appeared in later Marvel movies, and it was the MacGuffin Cube that got the Loki show going.
Right.
And I kind of forgot what its origin was, and it was kind of neat to see that again.
Yeah, it's a space stone.
So it's starting to make sense to me. I'm getting the interconnectivity of all this stuff. It's starting to mesh a little bit together.
There you go.
Better in my brain. So I'm actually glad I'm watching all these Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little exhausting.
Well,
watch them all at once.
That's true. That's true.
I like... Well, go ahead.
Yet another reason to watch them in, again, release order. This is my, personal religion. At the end of, in the extra scene or whatever, it actually shows clips of the Avengers movie. So if you're going to watch them in chronological order, then literally you're going to see all the Avengers, all the other Avengers, and snippets, like basically a trailer for the Avengers movie coming this summer. And then you're going to go find out who Iron Man is. Then you're going to find out who the Hulk is. Then you're going to find out who Black Widow is. Then you're going to find out who Thor is. Then you're going to find out who Hawkeye is. After you've already seen them all. Oh yeah, the Avengers. So as we've been talking about this and how Marvel has slowly brought us into this universe that gets weirder and weirder as we go, that's precisely why you watch them in that order.
Yeah.
So.
It's all true.
And I was talking to another friend of mine recently who had the opposite view, that you should watch them in chronological order rather than release order. And it occurred to me that Captain America really isn't the first movie in the release order, even if you were watching it that way. Because the movie starts and ends more or less present day.
It does, because really it starts with they dig them out. Excuse me, they dig them out of the ice.
Base, give me a line to the colonel.
3 a.m., sir.
I don't care what time it is. This one's waited long enough.
We found them. Yeah, and at the end,
You've been asleep, Cap, for almost 70 years.
So it's pretty much a flashback. The whole movie is pretty much a flashback.
it is.
So it's not really the first movie.
Ooh, wow, you really stumbled on something. You really, and it's only like a couple weeks before the Avengers happens. So yeah, if you think about it, the real time of that movie, if you take away the extended flashback, the real time is after everything else has occurred.
Yep.
So you're right. Good point. Suck it, people who want to watch it in chronological order.
Takes a DC fan, folks. It takes a DC fan.
It does. Well, you're a Detective Comic.
So tune in next time where we talk about the Avengers.
Yes, Marvel's The Avengers, not the silly one with Sean Connery.
Oh, silly. Suck it, Trebek.
Chuck it long.
I'll take the rapists for 500.
That's therapists, Mr. Connery.
I'll take the rapists for 200.
That's therapists.
All right. Guess that's it.
Oh, groovy, smashing, yay capitalism.
Captain, that's your cue.
I thought he'd be taller.
And I kind of... I might edit the burp out.
Probably should, yeah.